Hi, my name's Eric, welcome back to my channel. Let's do some song sorting. Today, I'm going to be ranking the discography of an absolute legend, Björk. I'm going to put my screen recording somewhere up here and drop a link to this Tumblr sorter somewhere in the description so that you can play along. Please leave your own lists in the comments as well, and subscribe to be here when I post new videos every week. Without further ado, let's get right to the battles with battle number 1, Paradisia versus Saint. Paradisia is an instrumental, a very beautiful instrumental, but Saint is one of the highlights of Utopia, so I'm going to go with Saint. Sumi or Tabula Rasa. Sumi is easily the angriest song on Utopia, and Tabula Rasa is a bit more optimistic and family-oriented, but I just love the passion behind Sumi. The production is very aggressive and textured. Yeah, I just really enjoy that track. Features Creatures or Courtship. Again, pretty different tonally. Features Creatures is probably one of the less accessible tracks on Utopia. It has those very weird intervals. Courtship is more straightforwardly sweet, but I think it stands out a little bit less than Features Creatures. Features Creatures is one of those songs, sort of like Not Get on Volnicura, that took me a while to get used to, but when I did, it became a highlight of the album for me, so I'm going to go with Features Creatures. The Gate or Utopia. I think The Gate has more of a shape to it, and even though it doesn't have a conventional 4/4 song structure sort of deal, I think it's more interesting, and the music video is just incredible, so I'm going to go with The Gate. Quicksand or Arise in My Senses. So we're sort of moving backwards in time a little bit. Quicksand is a closer, Arise in My Senses is an opener. I think the songs sort of have opposite approaches. Arise in My Senses I think is a little bit on the long side for an opener, and Quicksand I think is sort of on the short side for a closer. But what I think Quicksand does a little bit better is that it leaves us wanting more, sort of leaves us in a flurry, in a sort of unresolved state, which is very much where the album leaves off as well, so I'm going to go with Quicksand. Not Get or Atom Dance. Not Get, like I mentioned, is a song that took me a while to get used to, with those sort of carousel organ notes that are very sort of discordant and odd. Atom Dance was more accessible, and it introduced me to Anoni, who has since become one of my favorite singers, so I'm grateful to the song for that, but I think Not Get is one that I return to a lot more, so I'm going to go with Not Get. History of Touches or Black Lake, both mournful, but History of Touches is one of the shorter songs on Volnicura, whereas Black Lake is the longest. It's sort of more in line with a song like Body Memory as being basically the climax of the album. But I think for being very much a journey, I'm going to go with Black Lake, but this was a pretty close one. Stone Milker or Lion Song. This one's also pretty close, but I did put Stone Milker as one of my favorite songs of the decade on my video of my favorite songs of the 2010s, so I'm going to go with Stone Milker. Now we have gotten to Biophilia with Mutual Core or Solstice. Mutual Core is very aggressive and textured, whereas Solstice I think has a little bit less of a shape to it. Mutual Core is definitely one of the standout tracks from Biophilia though, so I'm going to go with Mutual Core. Hollow or Virus. Hollow is a mainly instrumental track, but Virus is just such a delightful song. It's got those plink plonky harpsichord sounds. It's such a perfectly Björk take on what it means to be an infectious disease. Sort of weird timing with that one, but I'm gonna go with Virus. Crystalline or Cosmogony. These are two of the highlights from Biophilia to me. Crystalline has very impressive production, but Cosmogony is just so incredibly beautiful. It feels like, you know, almost like a folk song, just so timeless and universal. So this one's really close, but I'm going to go with Cosmogony. My Juvenile or Moon. I think Moon, again, it's sort of a song like The Gate that has an unconventional time signature. It stands out for that reason, but it's also, I think, somehow more actively investing than My Juvenile, so I'm going to go with Moon. Innocence or I See Who You Are. This one is also really close. These are two of my favorites from Volta. Innocence has that very distinct Timbaland production, whereas I See Who You Are is a little bit more formless and free-flowing, but has that incredible climax. I think Innocence is almost like a sort of successor to Immature, but like with a little bit more of like an optimistic perspective. I See Who You Are though is one that I return to pretty often, specifically for that high note. And so I'm going to go with that one. Earth Intruders or Wanderlust. I love the music video for Wanderlust. The song is just so gorgeous. I think some of the standout moments for me on Volta are the most dramatic, sort of the songs that recall an earlier song like Yoka. To me, that like the Icelandic expanse are the ones where I think Björk is the most comfortable on Volta, so I'm going to go with Wanderlust. Okay, now we have gotten to Medulla. It seems like the sorter is skipping some songs, but I feel like we're going to circle back to them. So I'll see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't omit songs entirely. In this battle, Mouth's Cradle is the more accessible poppy song. And interesting, I think, about Medulla is that it's instrumentally probably Björk's least accessible album, but it also has some of her poppiest compositions. Specifically, Triumph of a Heart and Who Is It are, like, production aside, two of her most straightforwardly poppy songs, which is pretty interesting. That sort of balance of, okay, I'm going to give the people something really weird in the sound, but I'll give them a structure in the song that's pretty easy to acclimate to. But here in particular, I'm going to go with Mouth's Cradle. Ooh, this one's tough. Sonnets versus Ancestors. These are two of the deeper cuts on Medulla. Obviously, Ancestors stands out for being just a positively bizarre song, whereas Sonnets is odd in its structure. It's really more of a folk song or a contemporary classical song, sort of with that choral arrangement that's incredible. Ancestors has the awesome throat singing from, like Tanya Tagaq. Sonnets is up my alley for someone who loves chamber-influenced music. This one's actually really close for me. I surprisingly listen to Ancestors fairly often, but when I rediscover Sonnets, I am impressed every time. But I think purely on the basis of being a song that can be sung, I'm gonna go with Sonnets, but this one is really close. Desired Constellation or Oceania. Oceania, I believe, is the song that Björk performed at the Olympics, which is the first time I ever saw her, but I didn't realize that it was her until much later. Desired Constellation has that very sort of world-aware perspective that was very 2000s. I think for the emotional aspect, though, I'm going to go with Desired Constellation. Show Me Forgiveness or Where Is the Line? Where Is the Line is one of my favorite songs on Medulla, if not my favorite. I guess we'll find out. Whereas Show Me Forgiveness is a little bit more of an interlude, but it's an excellent interlude, but this one, yeah, clearly goes to Where's the Line. Now we have gotten to Vespertine, which is my favorite Björk album. Harm of Will or Unison. These are pretty different songs on the album. Unison, again, is one of Björk's poppiest songs. I think Harm of Will feels more intimate, more insecure, whereas Unison is more resolute and a bit more universalizing, which makes sense because it's the closing track, so she sort of broadens the scope to sort of like interpersonal relationships generally. But I think for being more bold and adventurous, I'm going to go with Harm of Will. An Echo, a Stain, or Sun in My Mouth. This is from that post-Aurora stretch on the album where things get really weird and dark. Sun in My Mouth, of course, adapts an E.E. Cummings poem. An Echo, a Stain is, Björk's basically unique poetry. Both of these songs have moments that I absolutely love. Like the climax of Sun in My Mouth is just incredible, whereas the sort of turning points and like moments of tension on An Echo, a Stain are really impressive. I'm honestly really torn on this. I don't know if I want to give An Echo, a Stain the edge here specifically because it's entirely or almost entirely Björk's original work, or if I want to reward Sun in My Mouth for being such an unusually successful adaptation of a poem to music. Those often can be pretty wonky because the meter of a poem is going to work very differently from the rhythm of a song. I think, though, very narrowly, I'm going to go with Sun in My Mouth, but that one was really tough. Pagan Poetry or Frosti. This one's pretty obvious, but what I love about this pair of songs is that Frosti feels very much like the come down from Pagan Poetry. It feels like the sort of afterglow and then transitions nicely into Aurora. But Pagan Poetry is like a top 5 Björk song for me, maybe even higher. I guess we'll find out. So I'm gonna go with that one. Cocoon or It's Not Up to You. Cocoon is one of the more unique tracks on Vespertine. It's Not Up to You is one of the poppier tracks. They're both excellent, but I just love the delicateness and the micro beats on Cocoon. Now we have gotten to Homogenic, just one of the best albums of all time. And we have Pluto and All Is Full of Love, two songs that are neighbors on the album, but also that could not be more different. All Is Full of Love has that amazing Chris Cunningham video with the robots. Pluto took me a while to get used to, but it has turned into my go-to workout song. But I think All Is Full of Love is just such a great mission statement, and it's just so beautiful and universal, so I'm gonna go with that one. Immature or Alarm Call. These are two songs from the middle stretch of Homogenic. Immature has a weird repetitive melody, as well as one of the best growls in her discography. Alarm Call is a bit more plucky and poppy, but still very homogenic. Again, this is a really close race, but I'm gonna go with Immature. All Neon Like or 5 Years. These are pretty similar to me in quality. I'm going to narrowly go with 5 Years because I just love that sense of resentment. Angry Björk is great. That suits her punk background a lot, I think. Yoka or Unravel, two of the most conventionally beautiful songs on Homogenic. Yoka to me is, again, another top 5 Björk track, but Unravel arguably is as well. I know it's Tom York's favorite Björk song, possibly his favorite song of all time, but just in terms of like a defining Björk song, I'm going to go with Yoka. Now we have gotten to Post with Cover Me versus Headphones. Cover Me really feels like more of an interlude, but it's a very cool interlude, whereas Headphones is its own self-sufficient track with those production details that merit the name, so I'm going to go with Headphones. Isabel or Possibly Maybe. This one isn't very close for me. I'm going to go with Possibly Maybe. It's very talky and very introspective. It's just got so much personality. Isabel is really good too, but I just love Possibly Maybe. Enjoy or You've Been Flirting Again. You've Been Flirting Again feels sort of in the vein of Cover Me, like a little bit of a transitional track on the album, whereas Enjoy is such an underrated banger in Björk's discography. I feel like people don't talk about it enough. Like, it's on par to me with Army of Me. I just love that song. The Modern Things or It's Oh So Quiet. It's Oh So Quiet obviously is a cover, and I typically like to exclude covers from these lists, but I'm a little bit torn because she so made it her own, and it's one of her most iconic songs. I think for fairness purposes, I'm just going to exclude it because I want to, talk about the merits of Björk's own songwriting, but I'm so torn because it is just so iconic, and it honestly probably would have made it pretty high on this list, but just to be fair, I'm gonna go with The Modern Things. Okay, we are at Debut and Post with The Anchor Song versus Army of Me. Army of Me is another one of her most iconic songs. It is just such a banger. I listen to it pretty often. The Anchor Song is very beautiful also, but it's competing here with just such an amazing track. It's kind of not even close. Aeroplane or Come to Me. This one is pretty close. I love Come to Me. It's pretty atmospheric. It's Björk in a sort of, let's give you a hug space as opposed to her Army of Me space. Aeroplane feels very much like an early indie pop song. It's got the feeling kind of like the indie pop that was popular between like maybe 2005 and 2015. This one's really close, but I think I'm gonna go with Come to Me because I like that sort of take on Björk in a like friendly, maybe almost maternal sort of headspace. Like Someone in Love or Big Time Sensuality. This one would have gone to Big Time Sensuality anyway, but like Someone in Love is another cover, so I'm going to exclude it. Venus as a Boy or There's More to Life Than This. This one is tough. There's More to Life Than This is such a cool take on the like early 90s club scene, but Venus as a Boy is another one of her iconic tracks. It's been covered so many times, and it just has so much personality and is so original, so I'm going to go with Venus as a Boy. Human Behavior or Crying. Again, Crying is sort of like There's More to Life Than This. I feel like some of the tracks on Debut could have been like Whitney Houston songs, and I mean that as a compliment, like, because Whitney Houston is such an iconic vocalist, Björk is such an iconic vocalist, and so their music was more similar at this time and then, diverged dramatically, obviously. But from the beginning, Human Behavior was just the Björkiest Björk song, so I'm going to go with that one. So we have circled back to Utopia, and the sorter is filling in some of the tracks that it hadn't gotten to yet. So now we have Saint or Future Forever. And this is really difficult because these are pretty close in quality and sound. I think that's made even more apparent by there being neighbors on the album. These honestly are very close and I love them both a lot, but I think I'm very narrowly going to go with Saint, partly because of some of the production details and partly because of the overall shape of the song having a little bit more variety to it. Virus or Sacrifice. These are tonally very different songs on Biophilia. Virus has that sweetness about it, but the uncomfortable sweetness where we know that it's actually describing a viral infection. But Sacrifice is, you know, an angrier song on Biophilia. Sacrifice, weirdly, is a song that I got to late. I, had listened to Biophilia multiple times, but I returned mostly to songs on the front half of the album. So I think I've had a longer time to appreciate Virus, but I do really like Sacrifice as well. Okay, this is actually a battle I was waiting for. Wanderlust or The Dull Flame of Desire. These are two of the most dramatic songs on Volta, but The Dull Flame of Desire has that Anoni feature and is just incredible. Again, this is another song where Björk very successfully adapts a poem, and she and Anoni work so beautifully together. I really hope they collaborate again in the near future, because they've been on, I can count off the top of my head, I think 4 songs together, I believe. Dull Flame of Desire, obviously. Atom Dance, I believe they collaborated on My Juvenile, and then on Anoni's album Swan Lights, Björk was on the song Fleta. I don't know if there are more, but I really hope that there are more in the future, because they're just such kindred spirits and they work so beautifully together, and they just are two of the most distinctive and amazing vocalists working today. So yeah, that was my opportunity to gush over The Dull Flame of Desire. Mouth's Cradle or Triumph of a Heart, two of the more straightforwardly accessible songs on Medulla. Triumph of a Heart, though, is just so punchy and poppy, and it has that incredible music video with the dancing cat, so gonna go with that one. Unison or Pleasure Is All Mine. These are very different songs. Unison is a closer, Pleasure Is All Mine is an opener. Unison, like I mentioned, expands the scope and, brightens up right at the end of Vespertine, whereas Pleasure Is All Mine is a sort of, dark and ominous track to lead us into Medulla. I think, though, the way that Unison ties up loose ends makes it feel a little bit more complete, so I'm going to go with Unison. Yoka or Bachelorette? Oh, I'm in danger. Yoka is just one of her most iconic songs. It just so neatly encapsulates her as an artist, her sense of space and of drama and adventure, but Bachelorette does that too and has that incredible shape-shifting music video. I love both songs a lot, but I'm going to go with Yoka. Oh gosh, Unravel or Bachelorette. This isn't even fair. This is not fair. They both approach heartbreak, but Unravel is sort of more actively mournful, whereas in Bachelorette we move to a place of resentment. I've honestly just been sitting here staring at the wall for a solid few minutes because I'm having so much trouble deciding. I think Bachelorette has more images, but Unravel is overall equally imagistic, but has, one central image of the ball of yarn. They both have equally impressive vocal performances. They have different approaches, with Unravel being more sullen, whereas Bachelorette is more fiery. I think the one that dominates in my head right now based on which one is playing more is Bachelorette. So I'm going to very narrowly go with that one. Army of Me or Hyper Ballad. These are two of the highlights of Post. Very different songs, but Hyper Ballad has more of a story. It also has that perfect cry dancing element of having a dance beat, but also being so actively sad and disturbing, so I'm going to go with Hyper Ballad. All Is Full of Love or Pagan Poetry. Pretty different songs. Pagan Poetry has that drama, that anger, that shape, whereas All Is Full of Love is sort of an anthem, but it retains its shape as it builds. I'm going to go with Pagan Poetry, though, because it is just one of the most iconic and intense Björk songs ever. Enjoy or Hunter. Both pretty aggressive songs. Enjoy is aggressive in its sort of assertive indulgence, whereas Hunter is actively angry and threatening and menacing and just very cool. This one's really close, but I think I'm going to go... I think I'm going to go with Enjoy. Okay, we are at over 400 battles and about 3/4 of the way sorted. Hyper ballad or pagan poetry? I'm gonna go with hyper ballad here. It is more intimate, more personal, more imagistic. Pagan poetry has that amazing dramatic shape, those sort of ebbs and flows of its energy level, but hyper ballad is just incredible. Headphones or Pluto? Her quietest song versus her loudest song. Headphones is sort of a nice tribute to music itself at the end of one of her most adventurous and bold albums, whereas Pluto is the moment of tension right before it explodes, and the come down from that is All is Full of Love. I think though, just for how bold it is, I'm going to go with Pluto. Okay, I am at battle 490 and I am 90% sorted, so I'm going to run through these a bit more quickly. It's Not Up to You or Future Forever. I'm gonna go with Future Forever. All Neon Like or Oceania. Gonna go with All Neon Like. Isabel or Oceania. I just love the lyrics on Isabel, so I'm gonna go with that one. Okay, finally, after almost 550 battles, it is sorted. So I'm going to give you the top 10 here and drop the rest in a comment below. So my top 10 are Hyper Ballad, Yoka, Pagan Poetry, Human Behavior, Army of Me, Bachelorette, Unravel, Enjoy, Big Time Sensuality, and All is Full of Love. So obviously Hyper Ballad is at the top because what I held back is that it's actually my favorite song of all time right now, so obviously that one's going to be my number 1. Some other notable placements are The Gate at number 18. That is the highest rated song on Utopia. I love the album, but I think the whole is somewhat more than the sum of its parts. We've got 4 Vespertine tracks in a row from 23 to 26 with Heirloom, Sun in My Mouth, An Echo of Stain, and Harm of Will. I could be wrong, but I believe the highest rated song on Volta is The Dull Flame of Desire at number 28. Interludes, instrumental tracks, and covers ended up around the bottom. So please leave your own lists in the comments down below. Please subscribe to be here when I post new videos every week. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you are staying safe and healthy, and until next time, that's it.